Am I limited to a particular place? I could? Oh, sweet. All right. I like to move. Okay, great. Okay, so what I'd like to do today, we're going to take a look at Mark chapter 7. You know, as we study the Bible, some things happen that their definitions according to the way dogma and theology breaks down the scriptures. So I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying. I'm going to present to you from temple perspective. So let me give you a little background about who I am and where I'm come from. I was born in Puerto Rico, raised in California. I played professional baseball for 6 years. I was a baseball scout for 10. And I've been following Torah now 21, almost 22 years. Been teaching for a long time. And the areas that I focused in mainly is ancient Near Eastern history, ancient Near East, and first century history. What I do, I take the Bible, right? And when I study about Moses, Noah, and all Joseph, I take the time frame of the Bible, the people in the storyline, in the narrative. And I began to research the laws, the geography, the topography, everything surrounding the storyline to understand the context of the story. Sometimes we want to interpret the story according to the way we understand it. And there's a lot of things that keep us detached from the understanding of what was going on at that moment. And we lose, trust me on this one, just repeat after me. The Bible was written for us, but not to us. When I understood that, everything changed for me because I understood that the Bible was written to a Middle Eastern people in a Middle Eastern culture with Middle Eastern languages and customs and countries surrounding Israel that we don't know anything about. Let me give you examples. When you study the book of Exodus, we're coming up to the book of Exodus, correct? Do you study Egyptology? I mean, think about it. Logically, Israel lived in Egypt over 210 years. But yet we do not study Egyptology. To contrast the plagues and to contrast the story that we've been told in the book of Exodus, that actually, if you study Egyptology and their belief system, then you understand why the book of Exodus was written the way it was. It would have been a lot easier for the Creator to just remove Israel. Just take them out. Why did he go through the whole process of the plagues? It has a meaning, okay? All right. So you have Babylonian Captivity. Two of my favorite people just walked up. I love them for years. So during the Babylonian Captivity, in the Babylonian Captivity, Israel was in Babylon for 70 years. But do you study Mesopotamian Babylonian history? The northern kingdom, if you believe in the restoration of the 12 tribes, the northern kingdom was dispersed in Assyria. Do you study Assyrian history? Let me ask you a question. You just read the story of Jacob, right? 2 weeks ago, the Torah portion. We're still reading about Jacob right now. But the Torah portion is talking about Jacob when he went to the house of Laban. But yet we do not study the area where Jacob lived for 20 years. So then, how can we understand the Bible if we never bother to look into the time frame? And that's what I focused in. I also study New Testament time frame in the Roman Empire, the things dealing with culture, imperial worship, honor and shame principles, things that are known in the first century language, in the time of the Messiah, in the time of Paul and Peter. So I want to understand the Bible better. And now, by the way, the teaching that I'm going to talk about is Mark 7 in the context of purity laws. Now, the area that I'm most passionate about, and I'm not here to convince you, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong, but sadly, Mark chapters 10, Matthew 23, Acts chapters 10 is used by the regular system of religion to say that we can do and we can eat whatever we want. Now, I'm not going to argue with you about that, because when you deal with emotions of food, people get offended. And I learned my lesson, okay? But what I like to do is highlight for you context. The temple is the area that I'm most focused in. My teacher is Joseph Good. I've been studying with him for 10 years. I've been studying the temple for 20 years now. That's the area. Now, consider this. How many commandments in the Torah? How many commandments in the Sefer Torah? 600 and? How many of the 613 commandments in the Sefer Torah do you think deals directly with the temple? Just take a guess. That's pretty close. 279. So you mean to tell me that 279 laws in the Torah are directly linked to the temple? Another 145 are indirectly linked to the temple. Ladies and gentlemen, that's over 45% of the biblical commandments are linked to the temple. Yet, that's the most area that we least studied. By the way, any argument about the name, the calendars, purity, foods, idolatry deals with the temple. We never study those things. So what I like to do, if you allow me, I want to share with you what is purity laws in the temple and purity law in the regular domain. So in the first century, are you with me? You with me? Okay, in the first century, there's something called moral purity and ritual purity, and that applies today also. Moral purity and ritual purity. Now, what we need to investigate and we need to study is which is more important, moral purity or ritual purity. I submit to you that moral purity is above and beyond anything else, but if you go into the temple, it requires also ritual purity. Now, what is the problem in Mark chapter 7? We will study that in context. The problem Yeshua is having with the Pharisees and the scribes is not that they follow their customs. It's an argument about moral purity and ritual purity. But if we do not consider the research of the temple, you're not going to see it. So then you're going to go to chapters 7, verse 19. Let's go there real quick. Let's go to Mark chapters 7, verse 19. In Mark chapter 7, verse 19, if you go into the text, it says, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods. Interesting. Because when you look into what it really says there, in most Bibles, thus purifying all foods, it's not in the Greek text. Maybe in some of your Bibles in italics. Okay, it's not in the Greek text. It was added in by the translator. It was added in because he did not understood ritual purity versus moral purity in the Bible. And that's going to be my journey today. Is that okay? Now, what I need from you is the opportunity to state my case. I'm not here to argue with you. That's not the point. I'm here to share with you a very important principle that if we learn it, then we really would understand how to fellowship with one another, knowing that every single one of us are ritually unclean, yet we all should be morally cleansed. Moral purity is above. But if the temple will be standing, and I'm going to challenge you with a question. Now, think before you react. Did Yeshua take sacrifices to the temple for sin? Think. Well, he's the Messiah. He's the son of Elohim. I know, he's divine, yes. But did he go to the temple? Did he take sacrifices for sin? I'm waiting. A normal Christian brother will say no. But yet he touched a leopard. He touched an unclean woman. He touched a dead person. That's ritually unclean. So if he will go into the temple, he has to bring a chata'at. Now, this is the big thing here. The word chata'at in the Hebrew should be translated as purification. So when you see the word sin, chata'at is translated as sin, then you don't know what transgression. Is it a transgression of idolatry, adultery, murder? There's no sacrifices for that. If you did something wrong to your neighbor, it's called a trespass offering. You know, that's not a sin offering. A sin offering could be for a woman in her menstrual cycle. She didn't sin, but she is ritually unclean to go to the temple. She cannot go up to the temple because the city is holy ground. Because, think about this, the temple is all about life. Okay? Now, I'm Puerto Rican. I like a little feedback. So say yes, no, maybe, give me a smile, just look puzzled, whatever. Okay? So the temple is about life. This is the reason why the priests were not allowed to wear long hair. Use long hair, have long hair. Long hair was not allowed in the temple. Why? Because long hair in the ancient world represented either being a barbarian or mourning rituals. The priests could only leave their hair long for 30 days, minimum. Maximum 30 days, I'm sorry. Okay? This is why they never put leaven on any of the on the altar. Because leaven was used for underworld deities in the worship of the underworld gods. This is the reason why honey is not found in the temple. This is the reason why women are not allowed in the area of the altar. Why? Because in Egypt, as well as in the Canaanites, as well as in all the places, they had temple prostitution. Thus, God does not want for the world to say that the women of Israel are temple prostitutes if they are made priests. So thus, in Israel, there are no women priests. He is trying to protect the honor of the women of Israel. You with me? This is the reason why in the temple, it was always done in silence. Because they used to do divination in the ancient world. That's why the entrails of each animal were put on the altar. Why? Because they used to use the liver as divination. The entrails in Egypt, the entrails in the Canaanite religion, to divination, for sorcery. So God says, no, in my temple that doesn't go. You see, because the temple of God is all about life. It's not about death. So a leper cannot enter the city. Blood of a human being cannot be shed in the city. A dead person cannot be buried inside the city. There were not even trees inside the city of Jerusalem. You could only eat the lamb inside, on Passover, inside the city walls. Is this making sense? The temple is life. Everything outside of it represents the world outside of life. So you have the realm of life and the realm of death. The temple becomes sacred space. In God's sacred space, moral sin cannot be, the presence of God cannot be present where there's moral sin. I'll give you precedent in the Bible, in Mount Sinai. God sanctified the whole people. He sanctified the perimeter around the mountain and the camp. But yet, when they worshiped the golden calf, idolatry, when they rose up to play, that's sexual immorality, and they ate a meal, that is food sacrificed to idols, that they introduced moral sin into the camp, thus there was judgment. That's why in the Torah, murder, in adultery, in an idolatry, they're all the penalties of death. Because it introduces sinful rebellion, moral sin. Let me give you another example. What was the downfall of David? Moral sin. What was the downfall of Israel in the book of Numbers with Balaam? Remember Balaam on the mountain? He says, no sorcery can come against Israel and no witchcraft within Jacob. That means that from the outside, no weapons formed against us shall prosper. Yod-Heh-Vav has blessed us. No one can curse us. But Balaam told Balak, he says, I know what you could do. Send the Moabite women down into the camp. And what did Israel do? They worshiped the gods of the women. They had sex with them. And they ate of the food sacrificed to idols. Thus, there's willful sin and there was judgment. The downfall of Israel has always been moral sin, assimilation. Tomorrow we begin the observance of Chanukah. The whole Hebrew roots is always arguing about this time. Oh, we don't do it. It's not in the Bible. It's not a feast. Anyone who knows Hebrew knows that Chag is a feast. And Chanukah is not a feast. It's an observance of the dedication of the temple. Why? Because the Greeks, they sacrifice in idols there. They sacrifice pork and pig on the altar. They introduce, check this out. Some of the rebellious Jews, they introduce gymnasiums into Jerusalem. What's wrong with gymnasiums? Well, when you look into Greek history, gymnasiums, they used to go in naked. Now, this is the key. The Greeks considered circumcision to be barbaric. Have you ever studied Greco-Roman perception of circumcision? How many, if I ask you that question, I'm not trying to pretend that you don't know. It just gives me an idea how far I could go. Is that okay? So I'm going to ask you questions like this. Give me a show of hands so I know where you're at, so I know how far to go. So have you ever considered looking into Greco-Roman perception of circumcision? How many of you have never looked into it? Perfect. So if you never looked into it, then you're going to be hard-pressed to understand what Paul is trying to convey to you. Did you know that there was a procedure? It's called epispasm. It was a surgical procedure to reverse a circumcision. Ouch. You know why? Because the Greeks believed that a circumcised male was barbaric and that it was a sign of arousal. Okay, the Greeks believed, and the Romans, that circumcised men was actually a sign of arousal constant. It was moral. It was immoral to them. Now, mind you, a Jewish person who followed the Torah was loyal to his wife. They loved the family and they loved God. So now imagine the perception of the whole Greco-Roman world, that they teach everybody, the circumcised people, they are barbaric, they are constantly aroused, and their behavior is contrary to the Greco-Roman world, that they believe that an uncircumcised male was by default, just for the sake of not having the circumcision, moral. But yet their behavior was completely opposite of what they look like. You see the contrast? So in the first century, circumcision will serve as a counter challenge to the whole moral behavior of the Roman world. Did that make sense? So now it has a purpose. So the thing about the Jerusalem and the gymnasiums is that in order for the Jews to go into the gymnasiums, they have to go naked. This is a problem. They have circumcision. They want to walk like the Greeks. They want to behave like the Greeks. They want to look like the Greeks. So now they reverse their circumcision, and that's the problem. They were renouncing the covenant, renouncing their faith, and they are assimilating. Thus, when you assimilate, you will compromise. When you compromise, moral sin follows. Did you get that? It happens all the time, everywhere. Keep an eye on that. It's a formula you see in the Bible. You compromise, you will assimilate. When you assimilate, you will compromise everything, even your values. Let me give you an example. Abortion. How is it possible that if a woman is pregnant and somebody kills her, it's double homicide? But yet if the woman herself chooses to get rid of her baby, it's her choice? No, the real root of the matter is that she is now allowing the innocent to die for her moral sin. That's the problem. And because of it, we will be judged accordingly. So the downfall of humanity is that we have not put Adonai on display. Your job and my job is to put him on display through our behavior, so that all of the world will know who we represent. Instead of arguing about the name and the two houses and one houses and the calendars, how about the behavior? How many people, they argue about the name, but they cannot care about a homeless person outside the street? What do you think is more important to God? That you know my name perfectly and you let the hungry go and the widows not being taken care of? We better reevaluate the direction we're going. Because we are studying to be smart instead of studying to learn how to serve him. And that's the conclusion I came 11 years ago. Do I want to be part of the problem or want to be part of the solution? So thus, I want to learn to study so I could be a better servant and find favor in his eyes. Even if people don't like it, it's fine. As long as the Lord is pleased, I'm good. So instead of me trying to tell you what to do, let me share what I'm learning so that we can be together and educate one another. Is that fair enough? All right, good deal. So we're going to look at Mark chapter 7 in this context. Now, watch this. The Pharisees and purity. When you come into the Hebrew roots, one of the biggest problems that we have is the lack of education within the body. I got to tell you, and I got to tell all my brothers and sisters on the internet right now, the scholarship among us is shameful. We argue about things we don't study. If I asked every single one of you, what do you do for a living? And then if you do something for a living that I have no clue about, is it fair for me to argue about your job if I don't know? What in the world does that look? How would I look in your eyes? I look really silly, right? And the scholarship within our ranks is very, very minimal. And I think we need to change that. And we wouldn't have all these arguments. Instead, we can have friendly debates or exchange of ideas or information to make each other better. So, when we talk about Chanukah, Purim, and some of this other stuff, and I'm going to challenge you, and I hope it's okay, but with all due respect to all of you, my king is my boss, and I owe loyalty to him. This is what bothers me, that when it comes to things in the Bible, to things in the temple, right now there's a whole bunch of people arguing on Facebook about Chanukah, but yet December 31st, they're going to be saying on Facebook, Happy New Year. And they don't realize this December 31st, it's actually ordained by the Catholic Church. It's actually the god Janus, the two-faced God. We can prove that. Go on the internet right now, 2 seconds. Google, boom. Ask Rabbi Google. He'll show you. If you don't believe me, don't believe me. So now you don't want Chanukah, which deals with the dedication of the altar and the honor of God in his temple. That's why it's 8 days. You got the Chanukiah, right? This is 7. Okay? If you have the Chanukiah anywhere, okay, somewhere, no, that's 7. Menorah. If you have the Chanukiah, it takes 7 days for the altar to be dedicated. On the 8th day is an altar to God. So the Chanukiah, you have 9. Why? Because one is supposed to keep the other ones lit. Each branch of the Chanukiah represents each day that it takes for the altar to be dedicated. Look it up in the book of Exodus, the book of Ezekiel 43. You see that it takes 7 days to dedicate the altar. First Maccabees, chapter 4, tells you exactly the purpose of the celebration of Chanukah was all about. The dedication of the altar and restoring the purity of the temple because of its moral sin that the Greeks introduced into the sacred space and holiness of God. Is this making sense? Yes? Okay, so the Pharisees' attention to purity derived from God's command for Israel to be a holy people and from the many biblical directives about holiness. Purity is important because impurity drives God's... This is important. Would you read this with me, please? Purity is important because impurity... Don't help me, it's okay. See, purity is important. Help me out. Purity is important because impurity drives God's presence from the midst of the people and will result in their expulsion from the land. This is very important that you remember. And I'll show you a graph there in a little bit that explains this a little bit better. Impurity belongs to the realm of death and demons and cuts a person off from God. This is so important. Okay? It clings to a person and can be transferred to another person, vessels, clothes, housed by touching, lying down or sitting. You have the virus is a perfect example of that. You have to wear a stupid mask everywhere you go when the mask really doesn't do anything. You know, that's the reality of it. But you just abide by the law. But in reality, if you go to a house that somebody has the virus, more than likely you can get it. If he touches you, more than likely you can get it. In biblical times, that was called contagions. And you want to make, because some people die from the virus, correct? So now you can be drawn into the realm of death. That's why they tell you to wash your what? Oh, wash your hands. And you all, wash my hands. But on Friday night, when you do the Kabbalah Shabbat, which is the reception of Shabbat, and we ask you to wash your hands, you say, no, that's rabbinical. Really? That comes from the temple, when the priests used to wash their hands before they serve on the altar. The Sabbath table comes from the temple principles of the altar becomes now your table where you eat. You see the lack of understanding. Now we're judging one, but we're doing the same thing on the other. And you know that in the ancient world, clean hands was actually righteous acts. So when you wash your hands before you eat the meal, you're saying, God, am I righteous enough to sit at your table? You already sanctify me with your Sabbath. I proclaim your holiness. I proclaim that you are my king. Am I righteous to sit here? That's why we do that before we eat the bread. Is that making sense? Because we go from the days of the week, the realm of this world, which death reigns, into the realm of honor and life, which is the Sabbath. In other words, every Sabbath when you proclaim the holiness of the day, you are elevated to a higher level of holiness. You just enter a microcosm of the garden. You just entered in your house the realm of life. Only one amen. You got it. Hallelujah. This is so important. When I learned this, it blew me away. I'm going like, wow. Now Sabbath take a complete different dimension. It's all about life. It's all about who he is. All right. The Pharisees clarified purity rules that labels persons, objects, places as pure or polluted and susceptible to impurity, according to the commentary, the Sundervan Bible Illustrated Commentary. Now, let me explain that a little bit. How many of you have never really looked into or really researched the intertestamental period? In other words, as we know it, from Malachi to Matthew, just to simplify it. Have you never looked into that area? They call it the 400 years of silence. There was no silence at all during that time. Okay? It's just that they closed the canons, okay, of the Tanakh or the Old Testament, right? So therefore, the Maccabees is in the middle of that. But if you study the history of the Hasmonean family, the Seleucid family, and all the chaos that happened when they came out of Babylon back to Israel, then you'll understand why the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Essenes and the Zealots and the Herodians, different groups in the first century formed. Now, did you know that there are 7 types of Pharisees in the first century? So when Yeshua is speaking to the Pharisees in Mark chapter 7, which type of Pharisee are you talking about? Is it from the house of Shammai or the house of Hillel? Because you have 7 types, 2 different schools of thought. Yes? So which one is it from? Can you distinguish which of the Pharisees Yeshua is referring to in chapter 7 of the book of Mark? How about Mark chapter 13? How about Matthew chapter 23? Do you know the differences? How about Acts 15? Because it says those Pharisees who believe in Yeshua. Based on their argument, you know who they belong to. But there's over 200 rulings in the Mishnah between the house of Shammai, the house of Hillel, and if we never studied it, then we're never going to know the differences. So here we are arguing about Mark chapter 7, trying to eat whatever we want on a text that even is not in the Greek text. We do not study the temple. We're not studying the temple. We don't know the different types of Pharisees. We have no idea how purity law works in the temple. And now we're creating our own theology. Can you believe? Can you understand why we're so confused? Yes? Are you with me so far? Okay? So what I'm trying to do is trying to explain to you both sides so you understand where they're coming from. So during the time of the Maccabean conquest, when they came out from Babylon, and there was a Hellenization period, the Jews began to lose their identity. They began to compromise their values and their beliefs, and they looked more like the Greeks than Torah-observant people. So there were zealous people. There were people for the Torah, and they were called Perushim. They were like separated themselves. They're saying, we want to maintain our identity, our set of values. We want to become the patriots, per se. Okay? We're not going to compromise on that. Okay, so in order for them to maintain a line of order of all of Israel, they took temple purity laws, temple ritual purity laws, only for the temple, and now they transfer that to the everyday domain everywhere. You want me to repeat that? You got it? Okay, they took temple purity laws, and now they want to apply that to everyday life outside the city of Jerusalem, outside the temple proper, and making people's life miserable doing it. So, for example, there's an expression in Hebrew that is called Am Haaretz, the people of the land, okay, or the sinners. The expression the sinners is not a sinner per se from the nations. It's the Pharisees speaking to a normal, humble human being, a Hebrew, who was not as learned as they were, who didn't have everything figured out, and they will marginalize them, and they will isolate them and say, we want nothing to do with that guy, although he's a Hebrew, although he follows the Torah, but he doesn't do it the way I do it, so therefore, he's not holy. So what did Yeshua do? He goes, look for one of them and says, hey, you want to have lunch with me? Can you imagine the contrast? Yeshua is sitting with them, eating lunch with a tax collector, with the people of the land, The people that the Pharisees believed they were unclean, unworthy to even sit and have a meal, and he invites you to have a meal. And he treats you with honor, with dignity, with integrity, right? Because Yeshua is looking for moral behavior. How many people do you see look beautiful here, and after you talk to them for 5 minutes, they're like dead people inside? That's why Yeshua kept talking to the Pharisees. You're a dead sepulcher. You're whitewash. You know what that's all about? That's temple language. When people, if you go to Jerusalem, back in the time of the temple, they will prepare the ancient path. You know what the ancient path were? All the roads leading to Jerusalem. So about 2 months or a month before Passover, they will send out all the Levites and the priests to clean the highways and the byways. And if there was a sepulcher, they put whitewash on it. It looked nice and clean on the outside, but inside there were just bones. So that if you walked by, you knew where not to step, because if you stepped on it, then you are ritually unclean to go into the temple. So they're trying to help you to stay on the right path so you do not become ritually unclean. Yes? So Yeshua is telling the Pharisees, you whitewashed tombs. You look beautiful and white on the outside, but you're just bones inside. There's no life in you. Okay, 1 or 2 amens will help tremendously once in a while. All right, let me get my coffee so I can get more riled up. This is making sense? All right, so in the temple, and I hope and I pray that you consider studying the temple. Listen, well, there's no temple, it's irrelevant. Really? Let me give you an example. Can someone go to Leviticus chapter 11, verse 42? Please. Leviticus 11:42. I'm going to look at it right here. See who gets there first. 11:42. And because we are broadcasting, so I'm going to read it. Leviticus 11:42. Okay, so you have, it says, whenever it crawls on its belly, whatever goes on all fours, whatever has many feet among the creeping all things, that creeps on the earth, those you shall not eat. They are an abomination. They are an abomination. But it says, whatever crawls on its belly. And you're thinking, what in the world does that have anything to do with this teaching? The word belly there in the Hebrew is very important. You have what's called beten, which is stomach. Gachon is the center. If you go in the Hebrew right here, look it up on the Sefer Torah. Okay, go to that parasha and look for the word gachon. The word gachon has a vav in the middle of it. The vav is enlarged. You know, like the word bereshit, it has the bet really big, like this one, really big. This is the vav, and the vav is bigger than the rest of the word. According to the rabbis, is the center of the Torah. Letters to the right, to the left, center of the Torah. Okay. What's interesting is the word is not stomach, it says belly, but in Hebrew the word gachon means torso. Now watch. Acts chapters 15, verse 19 and 20 is what? About unclean foods, adultery, idolatry, right? Interesting. Idolatry, unclean foods, and the genitalia for adultery. The center of the Torah in the book of Leviticus is dealing exactly with the same principles in Acts chapters 15. Did you get that? It's all here. When you talk to somebody who comes through the doors, you're going to be dealing with one of those three. And they're all moral in nature. Why is food moral in nature? Because in the ancient world, in the time of the Bible, eating a meal was a covenantal in nature. So therefore, if you ate a meal with somebody who worships another god, that means that that meat was sacrificed to that god. And in the Greco-Roman world, I don't know if you know this, but did you know that in the Greco-Roman world, a Roman man could sleep with another woman as long as the other woman was not a Roman citizen? Have you studied the 12 tablets of Rome? Have you studied the criminal laws of Rome? Come on, we're writing the letter of the Romans, but we never study the culture and the laws and of Rome. No wonder we do not understand the book of Romans. This is important that we consider, guys. All these arguments come forward because we do not understand context. And this is a problem. Did you know that a Roman man, a Roman citizen, could have sex with another man as long as the other man was not a Roman citizen? And you need to know that because in Romans chapters 1 through 6, what does Paul talk about? Adultery and homosexuality. Hello? He's teaching them Torah as a behavior. In other words, you cannot be in this community if you work and you practice like the Romans do. The God that we serve has different moral values than the Roman gods. It's all about behavior. 1 Corinthians. When you study 1 Corinthians, have you ever considered the worship of Asclepius? Or the Aqua Corinth, where Aphrodite was worshipped, where they have, according to, what was his name? I forgot his name now. One of the historians says there were roughly around 1,000 prostitutes on that mountain. People say he was exaggerating, but the point was that they were practicing fornication. Fornication in the first century was having sex with men or women as worship to gods. And they used to eat the meat sacrificed to idols. That's the whole essence of Acts 15. So in chapters 7 of the book of Mark, we're going to find out what's really the core issue there. Is it really the food? Or is it their behavior, moral versus purity? Am I intriguing you enough? Okay, so let's move on. Purity refers to the general principle of classifying and structuring a society. It has another meaning. One may speak of the specific purity rules and norms of a given group. Ancient Jews, for example, had specific purity rules which classified foods as clean or unclean, which ranked objects according to degrees of uncleanness, which identified people as fit or unfit to enter Israel's temple, according to Jerome Neary. Very important research. Okay? So if you were a leper, can you go into the temple? If you were a woman in her menstrual cycle, can you go into the temple? If you just gave birth, can you go into the temple? If you touch a dead person, can you go into the temple? You see? Because they're ritually unclean. Now, it's easy. If you're ritually unclean and you want to go to the temple, just take a shower. Example, you live in Arizona. Now, Arizona is kind of perfect weather in the evening, but during the day is a desert. So let's say that you go out and you're working all day, cutting trees, hard work. When you come home in the summer, does it smell nice? Come on. No, right? Okay, so now he comes home and he says, come here, honey, give me a hug. You're going to say what? Right? So he takes a shower. Now he can be intimate, hug or whatever, right? But God forbid he will do something moral in nature. And he wears a $2,000 suit. He wears the best cologne that you like. Are you going to treat him, allow him to get close to you? But he's nice and spiffy because he committed something that is a transgression to a covenant. So ritual purity is easy. You touch a dead person, not a problem. You didn't mean to do it. So all you do is bring the offering that requires the Torah, take a shower, do a mikveh, and then come on up to the Lord. It's all good. You can restore that relationship because you didn't mean to do it. It's not something you did on purpose. But if you willfully, rebelliously commit idolatry and adultery and fornication in the biblical times, the penalty was death because that was moral in nature, and the realm of death cannot be in the midst of the realm of life. That's why when somebody commits adultery, what happens? The house is divided, the family is broken, and the property is sold. And like Brad, my best friend, one of my best friends used to say, the Bible is about a family, a house, and a piece of land. When you commit moral behavior, those three are completely disrupted. That's why Israel was thrown out of Israel. Israel was exiled. People call themselves Ephraimites. Oh, I'm an Ephraimite. Ephraim. Really? Are you sure you want to be called an Ephraimite? Because the Ephraimites introduced other gods. They ate unclean. They changed the priesthood. They changed the temple. They're the ones that actually caused the whole dispersion. You see where I'm coming from? So we more than ever, because we're the sons of Israel scattered among the nations, we need to learn from our forefathers. And what does Ezekiel 43 verse 10 and 11 says? Teach the temple to the house of Israel, and let them be ashamed of their abominations. Teach them the entrances, the exits. its design, its laws, its statutes, everything. So we learn exactly what not to do in the realm of life to preserve ourselves so we don't die. Is this making sense? When I learned this, all of a sudden I understood the Bible a little bit better, but more so I understood my life a little bit better and my duty towards my God, my family, and my children. If I tell you, hey, I'm going to show up at your house tonight at midnight, and I'm going to knock on the door in your bedroom, are you going to be surprised that I'm showing up at midnight, knocking on your door? Because you know I'm coming, right? Well, if the Bible tells us exactly what displeases God, and he gives you examples all throughout Scripture. Samson, he was holy to God, but yet he had a downfall. Moral sin, he died. David, he was perfect in his kingdom. He did what was wrong, chaos happened to his family. Solomon, same thing. He was doing everything right, and then he committed adultery and led them to all kinds of chaos. Joseph, however, which is a type of Messiah, if you follow his life in Egypt, he behaved not only with righteousness, but moral purity. He passed the test. When he was being tempted by the wife of Potiphar, he ran out. He passed the moral test. Thus then, although he suffered, but he was pleasing to God, and then he became the savior of the ancient world, if we may add that, because he provided food for them. Are you with me? Yes? Yeshua also passed that test of moral purity. He was ritually unclean, morally perfect. So when you talk to a Jew that, oh, he never sinned, he will challenge you because he touched a leper. He touched a dead. So he was ritually unclean. So he made a transgression of a lower category in regards to ritual purity. There's nothing wrong with that. You can cleanse that. He was not in the temple. He was outside the temple. But if he had to go to the temple, where's the realm of life, and he touched the realm of death, he had to do the transfer. In other words, go from death to life. How do you do that? Baptism or immersion. Are you with me so far? I'm all excited, okay? So you need to slow me down if you can. Okay? All right. So now watch this. The Pharisees sought to promote obedience to God's law among the people and took for granted that true obedience will conform to their particular interpretation of the law. With their purity maps, and we were talking about earlier in our conversation, that will bring up an individual in which it's a perfect example. It's like, okay, I have all this truth, but the way it conveys that truth, no one wants to deal with. So what's the use? That's a perfect example of how sometimes can take God's truth and then we want to make it so much about us that we will commit transgressions in behavior, and now instead of putting God on display, our behavior brings shame to his gospel. So that means that I have to treat you with dignity and honor no matter what. I have to spend time because I'm only a servant just like you are. I just have a different role in God's kingdom. So I got to be careful that, I'm always I always do the right thing. Not only treat you the right way that you deserve, but also behave in a manner that's pleasing unto the Creator. Makes sense, right? But if we never study the temple, we don't know those perimeters. In the church system, oh, how I love to please you, Lord. How do I find your will? Well, Psalms tells you. How I love to do your will, O Lord, for your law is in my heart. Simple. 2 seconds is over. Follow the commandments, he'll tell you exactly what to do. Did you know that the Torah is the only ancient document that actually tells you exactly what the deity wants? When you read the laws of Hammurabi and the laws of Eshnunna, and you read all the ancient documents, which I read a whole bunch of them, and you go through their treaties, there's none of them so exact as the Torah exactly telling you what the deity wants. There's no secrets in the Torah. He tells you when to show up to the feast. He tells you what to bring for the sacrifices. He tells you when to bring the tithe. He tells you how to treat your neighbor. He tells you everything. All you need to do is follow the instructions. But the torso gets in the way. Oh, I am the temple of the Lord. But let me get this straight. Can you put a pig on the altar of God in the temple? Was that acceptable to the Lord? The book of Maccabees shows us that, right? It defiles the realm of life. So God gives you life through Yeshua the Messiah, and then he teaches you how to stay in the realm of life, but then we eat pork. I don't understand. You can't call yourself the temple of God if you're doing exactly the opposite of what God requires in his temple. But if we don't study the temple, we don't know that. You see? So instead of me arguing about these things and putting on your emotions and the favorite foods that you have, because if I do that, I'm never going to win. I just show you what God says in his temple, and then you'll come up to the same conclusion yourself. And the best truth is when you figure out that you found the truth yourself. It eliminates a lot of headaches. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm showing you the information, and then you go back and you validate it, you study it, and you let the Creator be the judge of everything. Amen? All right. Maintaining purity was a key item in their agenda of the Pharisees, and they applied to everyone many purity laws, meant only for priests serving in the temple. This is a very important piece of information. Are you with me here, guys? This is very important. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Is it working? Nope, not working. All right. Let's read that part again. I'm in the middle there, in the middle paragraph. Vision of what God required to all of Israel right behind it. It says, maintaining purity was a key item in their agenda, the Pharisees, right? And they applied to everyone many purity laws meant only for priests serving in the temple. The legislation in Exodus 30, verse 18 to 21, also 40, verse 12, and verse 31, for example, requires priests engage in the tabernacle service to wash their hands. Nowhere does the Bible stipulate that others must wash their hands for ritual purity outside the temple. If you're going to go out to the temple, you got to wash everything. Understand? Because you're going from the realm of death outside the temple to the city that's holy, higher elevation. You're going to do what God says. Is that making sense? Are you with me? Are you following me? Okay, good. All right, so what the Pharisees are doing is exactly what certain branches of Judaism do today. Not all of them, but there are certain branches, certain sect within Judaism that are very extreme. The Hasidim, the ultra-Orthodox, they will have no connection with you. They will never really talk to you. They will not shake the woman's hand. They will not sit in your chair. If you get up, they will not sit. They'd rather stand. Because they think, well, they don't know if you're on your menstrual cycle. Well, it's none of my business, but they think they'll be ritually unclean. Newsflash, people, every single one of us without a temple, we are ritually unclean. All of us. Doesn't matter how much you follow Torah, we are all ritually unclean. But we all should be morally clean. Yes? So what really makes us holy? What we look on the outside? Now, the outside also sends an image of whom we represent. Modesty. But do you rather dress in modest attire and then be a slanderer or be a promiscuous and going around, sleeping around? What's really more important? To live a moral life and learn how to live modest on the outside? Or be modest on the outside and be completely liberal on the inside? Right? That's always been the downfall of Israel. The temple is destroyed. They no longer have a guide of what God's ritual purity. Many people will not even listen to me because I'm not using Yod He Vav He or not using certain things that they want me to use. Okay, so I'm not using Yod He Vav He, as you can see, because the name is Kadosh. The name is holy. Do you know the laws of holiness in the temple? Do you know that you use the name of God in the temple? Right? Well, they used to do that also outside. Yeah, but when the tabernacle and the temple was established, they understood what holiness was. So back in the ancient world, they used the name of God in judicial courts when you swear an allegiance or an oath. If you made an oath, you used the oath. And you use the name of God as guaranteed that you're not committing perjury. So when all these people argue about the name of the Lord and all this division among congregations because you don't pronounce it the way I do, so I'm not going to have anything to do with you. But yet I have people offer me soaps with the name of God in it, pretending that I'm going to just wash my private parts with the name of God in soap because they think the name is holy, so I want to wash my name with it. True story. They're so adamant about things that are holy, they have no idea that they profane the same name they're so desperately trying to keep holy. By the way, do you know what the protocol is in the temple every time you heard the name Yod He Vav He? What you are supposed to say? Because the book of Psalms says that you should ascribe greatness to his name. So every time you hear Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh or Yahweh, you're supposed to say, blessed be his name and his kingdom forever and ever. Do we do that? Then we're not honoring the name the way we're supposed to. And I know people don't like to be challenged this way. But if we're going to be extreme on one aspect of it, then bring the balance on the other side. Because then we are judging one another with information that we don't all have, and now we no longer have fellowship. Now I cannot break bread with you. Now I can't keep the feast with you. Now I'm not going to be putting God on display and show you righteousness and justice. Now if you have a need, I'm not going to take care of you because you don't talk to me because I don't pronounce the name like you, or I don't believe in one house or two houses. And we lost our mandate. And we lost our calling because we want to be right instead of learning to be better servants. That's my point. I'm not saying not to be zealous to learn the proper way to pronounce the name. I'm not saying that. But what is the use of learning how to do it and then you're a lousy human being? What's the use? If I can't even talk to you because you're so self-righteous. Is it really worth it to the Lord? What is he really looking for? In Matthew 25, he tells you, he will divide the sheep from the goats. And he will tell those, right? For you, I did not know you because you didn't take care of the homeless, the widows, the strangers. Right? Read that chapter, and you see what I mean. Now, does that mean that I don't want to be zealous about certain things? Of course, I want to do it the best of my ability. But a homeless person doesn't care how you pronounce the name. Feed them first. Treat them with dignity. Do not marginalize them. Treat them with an honor. Sit them at the table with you and treat them with the same dignity God treated us when we did not deserve to be part of his kingdom. And then when he asks you, why did you do this for me? Then you reveal to him the holy name of God. It's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The great and awesome God, Supreme Elohim, who sent me to take care of you. Let us render honor to him now. That changes everything in our focus. And now the name of God will be uplifted and honored because my actions reveal the character of the same name. All right, Old Testament law does not require ordinary meals to be eaten in a state of purity. Only priests eating sacrificial offerings. Leviticus 22, verse 3 to 9. And laypersons eating their portion of their fellowship offerings in the temple. They needed to be in a state of purity, not only moral, but also ritual. Are you with me tonight? Are you getting something out of this? Have I offended you yet? Just give me time. That's not my intention. I want to be invited back. I like Arizona. My body doesn't hurt. The humidity is so low, it doesn't hurt me. So I love it. Laypersons eating their portion of the fellowship offerings must eat in a state of purity. The Pharisees have broadened the law to include all the Jews eating anything at any time. That's again, you need to understand, they're not all the Jews, only the Pharisees. Okay, so when you study the New Testament and it says the Pharisees and the scribes, you need to ask yourself the question, which type of Pharisee? The house of Shammai, the house of Hillel. Who is he talking to? Where are they located? What is the context of the conversation? Because if they're in the temple, they're right. If they're not in the temple, they are imposing their own interpretations. And that becomes a heavy burden. Those are the heavy burdens that Yeshua was talking about. But if you go to the temple, what the Pharisees are imposing on the people outside the domain of the temple become requirements of holiness. Are you with me? Yeshua is saying, you don't understand. You cannot ask these people to behave in the level of purity outside the temple. If they go for the feast, they have to go through the procedure of purity. But they're outside Jerusalem, you cannot expect them to live in the same way. They live in the real world. But they can all be moral. They can all do moral behavior, no matter where you're at. By the way, have you ever read 1 Corinthians in that context? Go back and read it. 1 Corinthians 1 through 11. There is a whole community who are basically committing incest. They are worshiping other gods. Have you ever heard of the Isthmian Games? The Isthmian Games were the Pan American Games or the Olympics. It takes every 4 years, but in the Isthmian Games took place in Corinth, it happened every 2 years. In the spring, in March or April, depending on the calendar. So Paul says you cannot drink of the cup of demons and the cup of the Lord. Why? Because those people who were citizens of Corinth, they could go to the temples, and there they had dining areas like this, a dining area, right? So when you eat here on Sabbath, you're eating something, the meal that's been prepared has been dedicated to the Lord. It is sanctified for the Lord. Not necessarily the way it was done in the temple, but symbolically becomes sanctified. You follow? That's why the Jews eat kosher. I understand why they do. So in Corinth, the Jews had a market for them to eat kosher meat. They had the right to do that. But if you're a Roman citizen or living in Corinth and you're a citizen, then you had the right to go to the temple, sit in the dining rooms during the Ishmean games, and eat meat sacrificed to the gods. To the gods. Okay, now have you ever studied 1 Corinthians in the context of the 10-year famine of the Mediterranean? There was a famine of 10 years. So now Paul later on says, hey man, if they give you meat to eat, don't ask, just eat. But if they tell you sacrifice to idols, don't eat. It's the difference between eating meat in a temple versus eating meat in a house. If they feed you and you don't eat meat every day, we eat meat every day here if we want to, right? In the first century, you don't eat meat every day. In the ancient world, eating meat was normally doing a feast. So now Paul is telling you, hey man, there's 10-year famine, there's hunger. If they serve you meat, you go somewhere to eat, don't ask. Just pray and eat. But if somebody sees you who believes in the God of Israel and they know that meat is sacrificed to idols, don't eat it. Not because you think there's other gods, because there isn't, because that will make them fall. You see what I'm saying? But if you don't know there was a famine, you're never going to put that in context. See how much we have to learn together? So instead of argue, I like to share what I'm learning. Your job is to go back and validate the information. It won't take you very long. And now we can put it in context. And then a lot of the arguments will go by the wayside. Are you having a good time? All right. The Pharisees have brought in the laws. I already read that. Modern day Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox branch of Judaism focus on extreme rules of purity laws. Not every Orthodox. I go to Israel all the time since 2004. Every year I go. And I have many friends that are Orthodox. But the ultra-Orthodox, they're very extreme. They want nothing to do with you. If you go over there, they will not even talk to you. Not all of them, but certain sect in certain communities. You follow? Because they don't know you, so you may be ritually unclean. Now they're defiled. So they only focus about ritual purity. Now, moral purity should be the priority. Okay, so when you go to Israel, don't take it personal. It's just like talking to an extreme Pentecostal. I grew up in one of those. Man, old school Pentecostals, the women will wear like a long skirt with long sleeves, right? And they, at that time, in that particular denomination, the woman cannot wear makeup. No, that means you're not holy. But their tongues come from here all the way to Mexico. They talk bad about everybody, but they look beautiful here. Holy. And they walk around with the self-righteous like holy. In Puerto Rico, you see them a mile away. They're walking Pentecostal, 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 Pentecostal. You know? Now, does that mean that women don't have the freedom to look like that? Yes, but the point is, it's not the outside so much, it's important, but the inside, whatever proceeds from the house, from inside. Moral purity, I'm telling you, is the key to understand God's will. And I'll show you more on this. In the Bible, and I'm going to quote you from the Mishnah. If you don't study from the Mishnah, Kilim, it's actually telling you what purity was in the temple. Okay? There are different degrees of holiness in Jerusalem. You need to learn this. Because when you study the New Testament, you will see a lot of this as you study the Bible in the New Testament. Okay? Like, you know, where Yeshua turned over the tables? You know, it's on the Temple Mount. But it's not in the higher holiness area than inside the temple. In other words, if this is, I have an app, but I can't open it. I don't know if I could open it right now. Can I open an app here while I do this? Would it work? Okay, so watch this. Let me show you this. Hopefully, I didn't mess it up. Okay, it's right here. This is the app that we have on the temple. Okay? I'm going to show you where Yeshua turned over the tables. Oh, gotcha. Let me go back. Thanks for telling me. I'm going to show you this and get into chapter 7 in a minute, okay? So this is the app that we have. Joseph Good, he's done the research for 40 years. And this is the app that we put together, okay? As you can see, it's part of our ministries. There is a rabbi in Israel who's one of the leading authorities of the temple, and he's using it over there to teach the children on the app, okay? So I'm going to show you this. So I'm going to go to the royal store. This is the court of the women. I'm going to go to the royal store right here. Now, this area that you see, look how beautiful it was. Big. It was huge. This area was built by Herod. And this area here served as the location where they used to buy the sacrifices and they used to buy everything they needed for the temple. Every single shop inside this big place was owned by Ananias. Have you heard that name before? Ananias was the high priest. He had 5 sons and his son-in-law. And he owned all the shops here. So they were committing corruption. Now, this area right there, and you'll see it when I go here to the big map, and I'm going to show you really quickly so you see what I'm saying. Now, when you go into, and I'll try to make it bigger a little bit here, but you see the red tile where the arrow is? I wish I could make it. Hold on, give me a second. Does the visual helps? Okay, good. So check this out. So if I make this bigger, now you see where the red tiles is? Say yes. I need you to tell me yes. Okay. You see this little wall in here? Anything inside those walls in here is holier than any other area on the Temple Mount. Remember that. Now, this red tile area, all the way where this is, was added by Herod. So it's on the Temple Mount. It's holier, but then you go to a higher, holier place inside the wall. And then you can go into the court of the women, right in here. You can go to the court of the women. That's holier than this place. Now, I'm going to take you to the Sanhedrin Council real quick, and then I'm going to come outside to show you something. Now, these things really help you out. This is where the Sanhedrin Council will meet. I'm going to go out that door right there. Okay, I'm going to go quite quickly here. Now, you see that fence right here? This is called the Soreg. Now, the Soreg, you see the building in front of you? That's the area built by Herod. It's on the Temple Mount. It's on the Temple Mount. It's holy, but it's not as holy as where I am now. I am inside this wall on the Temple Mount, right? Now, when I turn towards the temple, I'm standing in that fence. That fence is found in Exodus 19, verse 12. Let's go to Exodus 19, verse 12. Now, that fence went around all the temple. Exodus 19, verse 12. Listen to what it says. You shall set bounds for the people all around. Let me read verse 11. It says, and let them get ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. You shall set a boundary around the mountain. Remember, the temple was built on a mountain. Are you with me? Okay, so it says, take heed to yourselves that you do not go up to the mountain or touch its base. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. So when they went to Jerusalem, they put a sign right over here. They actually found the archaeological information. And I'm going to take you right to it, the Soreg, right over here. And I'm going to turn, and there's a sign in Latin and in Greek that anyone goes beyond that threshold, you'll be put to death if you don't have the physical circumcision. You have to be part of the covenant. Only Israel can go beyond that point. Now, this should be an interest to you because Paul got arrested in Acts chapters 21 when they supposed that he took a Greek into beyond this area. When you read it in Acts 21, when it says that Paul got arrested, right? And he took 4 men with him to do a Nazirite vow, which requires 3 types of sacrifices. Numbers chapter 6. 15 animals plus 5 baskets of unleavened bread. So why is Paul doing a Nazirite vow 28 years after Yeshua died and resurrects? when supposedly the temple and the laws and the sacrifice were done away with? That's another story altogether. So here we have this fence. Are you with me? Come on, guys. Tell me you're with me. This is important. Because I don't want to go another hour and you say, I don't know anything he said. Okay? All right, watch. If I would do this right here, check this out. Where is this thing? Okay, right here. If I walk this way and I cross the threshold, now I'm in a higher holiness. If you're a Gentile, you die. Because God already said, around the mountaintop, around my temple, you're going to set a threshold. You cross that threshold, you're not in covenant. It's a realm of life. You are encroaching on God's territory. Let me ask you a question. If I just met you, you know me from the internet, but we never met in person, correct? You invite me to your house. When I go to your house, I tell you how to cook. I sit in your chair, and then I go wandering around your house, and I'm laying down in your marriage bed. Exactly. It doesn't matter how you think I am as a Torah teacher. You'll be kicking me out of your house because I'm encroaching on your sancta. You have areas in your house that are separated for you and your husband. Is this making sense? So are you going to allow just anybody to walk into your bedroom where you and your wife have intimacy? So what makes you think God is going to allow you to go into the Holy of Holies? Doesn't say anywhere we can enter the Holy of Holies. But yet it's a theology. We can enter boldly. Why? Because the high priest on the Day of Atonement represents all of Israel. So while everyone is praying outside, when he goes into the Holy of Holies, he's not representing himself. He's representing all of Israel. So it's as if everyone comes in with him. But they cannot come in because they're not called to go in the Holy of Holies. Only one man a year. Only one man once a year. You follow? Because it's the holy area of God. Now, what's interesting is the higher you get to the holiness of God, the lonelier it gets. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so we're here. We are right here. So the nations will be beyond this threshold. Now, let me take you over here. I'm going to go on that side over there. You see how you go up in elevation? So now I'm going to walk through that door into the court of the women. But I have to go in elevation. Remember, all the nations are outside beyond that threshold. Only covenant people can go beyond that fence. They all can get to that fence. God welcomes all of them to that area. Come to my holy mountain. But you cannot go beyond that threshold if you're not fully committed to my covenant. If you're fully committed, you're welcome. Yes? All right. So now, I changed the topic, guys. I apologize, but this is important. He told me let the Spirit lead, right? So I am doing that. So now we're going to go through those steps and that big door. You like the app? It's a great teaching tool. By the way, archaeologists are helping us for all the archaeology. We know some of the leading archaeologists helping us. Like the floor you're going to see right here in the Court of the Women. This floor right here is the latest archaeological find that you see in the city of David. And this has been validated as the patterns that they think were used in the temple. So this is not just we made that up. We actually took it from archaeology. Right. Yeah, so it was good. Some of the archaeologists gave me the research. I saw it on the city of David. I took a picture. We put it all around the temple. So we can validate now what they think they look like, which must have been beautiful. Okay, so now all of Israel can be here, women, children, men. Now, you see those 15 steps right there? Only men of Israel can go through, or the Levite or a priest. Why women cannot go? Because, but by the way, how do we get that the women can be there? Can somebody go to Exodus chapters 38, verse 8, please? Real quickly and read it for me. It's the court of the women. I hear people telling me, oh, that's a rabbinical invention. Fake news if they say that, guys. Fake news. No one can add or take away from the temple. It's a blueprint. No one can change the blueprint. Who's got the verse? 38:8. Please read it. Really loud. Wait for the mic. I'm sorry.
Okay. Next, he made the bronze basin and its stand from the mirrors of the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
So the women that serve at the entrance of the tent of meeting, right? You see that big old door right in front of you? That's the equivalent of the eastern gate of the tabernacle. So the court of the women is exactly what the book of Exodus tells us the women were when they donated the mirrors for the laver. You see what I mean? How many of you never saw that before? Isn't that cool? So we can literally prove that everything in the temple was ordained all the way from the book of Exodus. It's all there. Okay? Listen, you may not have time to study this thing out. It's okay. My passion. I'm willing to do it. All you need to do is validate it. Okay? Yes, sir?
That they're speaking about, I'm guessing here that they were copper shine.
Yeah.
Is that why isn't the two posts out there copper as well?
They were copper, yeah. Corinthians.
So I didn't know if
bronze,
there's a connection between.
It could be, but I never really connected it. I think that you may be right. I'm going to look into that because I never connect that. So let me think on that. Good point. See, I never can make that connection, so I got to go back and look that up. It wouldn't surprise me because all the other ones were gold. So, all right. But remember that the copper for the mirrors was for the laver, not necessarily for the door. Yeah. All right. So now, when we go up, all of Israel, all the whole world can be outside. All of Israel can be here, but only the men can go beyond that threshold. You know the 15 Psalms of Ascent? Shir HaMa'alot. As I look to the hills, from where does my salvation come from, right? They used to sing that on the steps right here. Psalms 121 and first step all the way 134. The Psalms of Ascent, because you're ascending to a greater level of holiness. Yes? All right. So as you walk through, you go up the steps. As I'm going through this door, the great Nicanor gate, I go to the altar. Look how big you see this is the court of Israel right here. The court of Israel. I'm going to look back. You see those 3 steps in front of me? That's where the Levites will stand to sing. So if you're a Levite, you will sing on those 3 steps. A greater level of holiness. Less people. All of the world, Israel, the men of Israel, the Levites, the priests. Right? So it gets less people. So you're thinking, how does this apply to me today? Very simple. When you follow Torah, what was your biggest complaint when you started? I am all alone. I'm in the wilderness. No one wants to talk to me. Why? Because the Creator wants to take you to a greater level of holiness. In order for Him to take you to a greater level of holiness, to the realm of life, He needs to remove you from the realm of death. Thus, you always end up by yourself. Because you no longer have anything in common with this world. By the way, that's the argument Paul is having in all his letters. Although Israel and the Gentiles who are coming into the gospel and being grafted into Israel, they are now purified, right, in Messiah to be part of the kingdom. But they were all living in the dispersion. They were all ritually unclean. But Paul demanded moral purity no matter where they were. Yes? And he was using the temple as the backdrop to teach them how moral purity worked in the temple. For we all have fallen of the glory of God. Exactly the same thing. By the way, you know the separation happened on Mount Sinai? All of Israel were outside the threshold of the mountain. 70 elders went up with Moses and Aaron and his sons and Joshua. So the 70 elders stayed in a particular place on the mountain. Then he took Aaron and his sons with him, and they stayed in a particular place on the mountain. But it was only Moses who would be able to go into the cloud. The same division as in the temple, as in the tabernacle. All of Israel, you get the picture? The same order. Even the animals. You have the animals that the whole world can eat. If you're not in covenant, eat all the pork you want. You're not in covenant with the God of Israel. But the moment you come into covenant with the God of Israel, now He tells you what is acceptable. Now you don't eat that because now you're distinct. He made you a holy nation, a peculiar people. Now you live according to His standards of holiness. Right? So now He tells you what to eat. And then the priests, they're at a greater level of holiness because now they're in the sacred area of the temple. The guest. Exactly. Same thing. It's all about purity. All right. Now, watch this. It gets better. When I go up the steps, let me see if I can get this thing right. There we go. Look at the veil. You see that veil right there? That's the veil that rented. 78 feet high. It was this thick, my hand thick. There was a beam holding that veil, and the beam was cedarwood. It was hollow in the middle, and it was filled in with gold. Josephus talks about the price of the gold. In today's market, that beam filled up with gold will be worth $14 million. And they're not talking about the beam. They're talking about the veil, that it was more costly and more beautiful than the beam. That's a place for you to say, wow, that was cool. I work hard for that information, guys. Come on, man. Anyway, so only the priest can be here because it's greater in holiness. And then you can go into the holy place. Guys, this app is available for you on your app store. And you can get it on your phone, your iPad, your Android. Use it. Second Temple. Second Temple. Now, there is a cost to it, but it costs a lot of the people who made this app, they are from Utah, and they made Lord of the Rings, and they made Hobbit, and they are the ones behind all kinds of stuff from cool stuff that they've done, and they love the temple. So we hired them to do this, and it's all based on the measurements. And a lot of rabbis in Israel are really excited about this because they're using it for their studies. Right now, this is really the most accurate one that we can find because we're working with archaeologists and historians and rabbis to get as much evidence as we can to be as accurate as we can. So if they're building a temple in a year, they don't have another model. Think about that. Quite possibly this will be a model. I don't know. It will be amazing. So then we go into the holy place. This is the veil. You know what that veil was called? The heavens. That's what the altar. The altar was about 19 feet high. Pretty high. Okay? How high is that roof? About 25, 30 feet? About halfway up. It's pretty high. Now, so when we go into the temple, we go through the veil. That veil was called the heavens. That's the one that rented. We go through the doors right here, and then we go into the holy place. And then we go into the Holy of Holies. I want to show you something cool. You see this corner? This is the southwest corner of the veil. There were two veils here that separated the holy from the Holy of Holies. You look north. Let me go here a little bit more. Can you see it? Let me go a little bit more. You see the end over there? You walk between the veils. So now you have the veil outside, two veils dividing the holy place and the Holy of Holies, and the veil in the second story. So there were 4 veils in the temple in the first century. So which one rented? That's the question. Okay? So it was the one in the Holy of Holies, and outside. So you walk between the veil. Whoops, I'm sorry, I walked the wrong way. And now we're in the Holy of Holies here. No one can come here except the high priest. The Ark of the Covenant is not in there because in the Second Temple period, the Ark of the Covenant was not there. Okay? Is that making sense? So you go from the Jerusalem, then from Jerusalem you go to the Temple Mount. From the Temple Mount you go to the Court of the Women. From the Court of the Women you go to the Court of Israel. From the Court of Israel you go to the Levites, the priest, the high priest. What do you see? The higher you get to God's presence, the lonelier you get. And by the way, what were the standards of holiness for a high priest? Extreme. So people call themselves, I am a priest in Yeshua. Watch their lifestyle. If you call yourself a priest, better be careful because the level of holiness was greater than anybody else. Is that making sense? All right, so now that I show you that, let me get out of it. So say, hey, wow, that's cool. Look, it comes in 3 languages. English, Spanish, and Hebrew. So you can open, you got the information in Hebrew. A lot of work went into this, and I'm grateful for Joseph Gibb for all the research that he did, and everything that you see there has been validated, and we're looking to improve it, make it better, and so on and so forth. So keep us in your prayers, okay? Because we're going to make more more and more and more adjustments to it. We're doing more research. We want to continue to keep improving it. All right, but this is probably a really good start. Okay, this slide in reality is probably one of the most important ones of my teaching. Can I go into 9? Is that okay? Are you guys okay? All right. By the way, thank you for having me. Last minute, we had a pretty good turnout. You know, we're doing pretty good. Wow, we got like 41 people on the internet. That's great, you know. So I wasn't counting on doing this. You guys are very hospitable, and thank you for having me. And I pray that it's a blessing. I've done this teaching differently on my website, moral purity and ritual purity. So I'm teaching it from a different perspective. All right? Now, this slide is very important. Okay, there is something called holy and profane, clean and unclean in the Bible. But there's holy and profane, clean and unclean. Something moral can be always unclean. The unclean, the impure, ritually impure, what you see right over here, what you see right over here where it says impure, I want you to notice the little dots in here in the middle. Let's see, guys, if this thing will work. It's not working. Do you see the little dots separating it? I want you to notice sacred, common. Okay, this Bible became common for me. I gave my Bible away last week. I didn't have a Bible, so I asked my brother, do you have a Bible? So he says, this is the Bible we give our guests, right? So this is the common Bible. It's holy, Word of God, but it's called common because anyone who comes in is free to use it, right? But if this is my Bible, it's separated for my use. That means that you don't have permission to use my Bible unless you ask. It's just logical, right? The temple worked the same way. So now, anything in the temple can become common. But you do a rite of passage in the sense of immersion, do sanctification, and you can put in the realm of holy again. Because it's ritual in nature, okay? Something could be tameh, which is unclean, tahor, clean. But if something is ritually unclean, you go to the mikveh or wash it. But if something's morally unclean, it cannot have ever any connection with the holy. So on Mount Sinai, they worshiped the golden calf, they were cut off. You know? Right? You commit murder, you're cut off. Because now you took somebody else's life away. You don't have the time, you don't have the right to willfully, rebelliously murder somebody because God gives life, not you. We can defend our life, self-defense. Because it's the gift He's given us, we have the right to defend it. If I don't defend my life, I'm not protecting the gift God's given me. Yes? Right. Praise Yah for that. That I could defend my life. Pretty soon it seems like we're going to have to. Okay? But understand purity. So here, if it's something morally impure, you can never have any connection with the holy. So, ritual versus moral purity. Yeshua challenges the Pharisaic purity law, which separates the body. In Ezekiel chapters 44, verse 23, talks about this. The temple is holy. The holy cannot have any contact with moral impurities. We talked about that already. That's why the lepers, which represents death, represents shame, represents exile. They were in the realm of death. When Israel went into Egypt, they went into the realm of death, exile, and shame. When God redeems them through the covenantal relationship through Passover, they went through the water, symbolically becoming now born again into now sanctified for the Lord on Mount Sinai. That's why we do a mikvah. That's why we do baptism. We go from death to life. It's a symbolic, more like conscious. It's like more psychological thing. I was born out of water in the womb into the realm of death. Because we were born into the realm of death. In Yeshua, now we enter again into the realm of life. The thing is that we cannot go into Eden because when Adam introduced rebellion, it excluded him from the garden. Now he needs to get out. He cannot live with moral behavior, sinful, inside God's presence. So God exiled him. The northern kingdom, when they went into Assyria, why was it? Moral sin. Judah, moral sin. By the way, do you know that if you oppress the homeless and the widows, and the Levites is also considered as moral sin? Because you are representing his character. And when you oppress someone in need, you are presenting God as an oppressor, that he has no morals. Normally, oppressors have no morals. They will do whatever it takes to take care of somebody by any means necessary. Yes? This is important. It transformed my life. I got to be careful how I treat you. Because if I treat you in a manner that is not conducive to reveal God's character through my lifestyle, I'm shaming his name. And I tell you one thing, hate me because you don't like me. But I don't want you to hate my king because of my behavior. That's my only fear. That's my only fear. I'm afraid of shaming my king. I'm afraid that if I do something, will bring shame to him. And then he suffers the shame because of my behavior. And if we all will worry about that, we will be more tolerant with one another. You know? All right. Another example, biblical example, Cosby and Zimri, moral sin. Mount Sinai, worshiping the golden calf, moral sin. Samson, moral sin. Israel, moral sin. Acts 15, what to give the Gentiles, abstain from idolatry, adultery, fornication, and oppression, moral behavior. Paul knew those people in Corinth cannot live ritually pure lives. They live in Corinth. How do I know? Ask me, Rico, how do you know? He shaved his head when he was in Cenchrea, when he was leaving for Ephesus in chapters 18 of the book of Acts. Why did he cut his hair? He took a vow. He did a Nazarite vow. That means that he was ritually unclean when he cut the hair. That means he had to start from scratch again. You see what I'm saying? But if we don't study the temple, that piece of information, it goes over our heads. All right, next. What pleases God is moral purity, Leviticus 8 through 11. It's the essence. It's the essence. So now let's get into chapters 4. I got a half hour, we could do it. I could do it. All right? When they come from the marketplace, chapter 7 of verse 4 of the book of Mark. Okay, I'm not going to read every verse, but I want to give you a highlight what I think is important. I give you an hour of an introduction. All of that was introducing this thing. And once you understand the principle, you can read all the letters, and you can read the letters of Paul. It's going to make sense. You're going to get it. Really, study it out. And if you want to give me an opportunity to share more with it, consider my website as a resource. You've been there for a while, and hopefully it's helped you. By the way, if I'm wrong in something, if I teach something that is wrong, and I find out that is wrong, I don't mind changing it, okay? So please understand that I'm also learning, I'm researching, I'm also trying to get, to understand context. And if I do something wrong, I don't have a problem changing it. I'll tell you, hey guys, 2 years ago I thought this, I was wrong. Let me give you the new information. What's the problem? I don't understand why people are so afraid of being wrong. So what if we're wrong? We can fix it. The problem is when you think you're right, when you're wrong, and you never want to fix it. Then we become a stumbling block. Okay? All right. By the way, I don't teach on things I don't study. So if I share this with you, it's because I researched it, and I always leave an open door that I may have missed something. If I did, I'll bring it and I'll fix it. Is that fair? Okay. All right. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. Presumably, the elders fear some contamination from contact, even with fellow Jews who are non-observant. I already explained that to you. According to Josephus, the sectarians at Qumran were far more extreme and regarded it necessary to bathe even after touching a junior member as if he were an alien. Many people, the Qumran community and the Essenes. Really, they left Jerusalem because they didn't want to be ritually unclean. They live so extreme. It's a priestly line who went living over there. They were so extreme. Some of them never married. According to the Torah, it's against the Torah. Some of them wanted no connection with humanity. So what is the use having the Torah if you're not going to have any connection with the real world? I mean, what did God give you Torah for? The tree of life. Et chaim hi. But we sing that on Shabbat. But then you take the tree of life, you hide it in the ark, and you don't share it to anybody the whole week. No. I don't want you to eat of the tree of life. Torah is not for you. It's only for us. Mine. When our job is to share the Torah with the nations. He gives us the resources so that now you can give resources to the people who need it. And now your behavior reflects the character of the king who gave us his instructions. Our behavior reflects his loyalty, his faithfulness, his righteousness, and his justice. So that when they see us, they don't see us, they see him through us. When we speak, they don't hear us, they hear him through us. The way we treat our wives, our children, our neighbor, they see the Creator, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through our behavior. And then Yeshua, the right hand of the Father, can be looking and says, those are my servants whom you've given me, O Father. And then you show up and you say, my Father, my King, my shield and my strength. I come to you because I have a need, my Elohim. I come to you with the honor you have bestowed upon your son Yeshua. In the name of Yeshua, with the honor you gave him, with the power you gave him, I'm presenting myself to you. Please, O Lord, consider my petition and my prayer. And if you've been acting and behaving in immoral behavior, taking care of the needy, the homeless, the widows, the strangers, and putting God on display by your behavior, then why would God not bless you? When you're going to put all the blessings he gives you so the world will see him through you. So then they would ask you, whom do you serve that God is so near you? And then you get to boast about him. Oh, you don't understand. I serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Let me tell you my story. I used to be this type of person, and I was destined for death. But I cried out to the Lord, and he rescued me. And then he gave me instructions of love and purity of moral behavior. Now I can have a wife that I could love with my life. I could have children that respect me. Now I'm an honorable person. Not because I'm worthy, but because he's bestowed upon me his word. What have we done to receive so much mercy? I submit to you that none of us are worthy of the tree of life. So now we're eating of the tree we don't want to share with anybody. And our behavior is becoming a stumbling block to many people. How come this whole community does not follow the values of the God of Israel? Because I submit to you that we're not doing a good job representing him. None of us are. If we were, half of America would be following Torah. We will not tolerate corruption in the government because the Torah tells us specifically what to do with them people. Treason, get rid of them. Right? But we're afraid to stand for his righteousness. We're more concerned about what they say out there, liberals who have no values, instead of us instilling God's value into society. No, we want to run to the mountains. We want to go hide. When we are called to be the light in the midst of darkness. And I used to preach that. Yes, you take care of yourself. And yes, you want to be able to behave in a manner of protecting yourself. But to what point are you going to be so isolated and then no one can see the light in you? The world needs us. Why are we looking for a quick getaway? You mean when the world needs us the most, we want for a rapture? So the world doesn't know that God exists? Build community. Build fellowship. The Jews go anywhere in the world. The first thing they do, they build schools. They run for office. They build businesses. They build a synagogue. First thing they do, build a synagogue, fellowship, community. You know, they build businesses and they help each other out. Muslims do the same thing too. Chinese do it all over the time. I lived in a county in Puerto Rico, in a town in Puerto Rico, in Venezuela. Very, very small. Not even a traffic light. And I remember that within the 2 years that I was there was one Chinese family. They showed up. They worked for a Venezuelan, and they busted it for a year. They bought the store from the guy. Then they sent for the family member, and they hired their own family to work for them. Then they saved money. They bought a pharmacy. And then they sent more Chinese family members to come and work the pharmacy and work the supermarket. Then they bought another one down the street. And by the end of 5 years, the Venezuelans are getting upset. All the Chinese own our stores. Why? Because they work as a community. They build each other up. We don't do that. What are your gifts? What do you bring to the table in the kingdom? How come if you're an electrician, I'd rather call someone who has no fear of God, and if I need a job in my congregation, I will not call you. You know why? Because instead of me paying you what you deserve, I'd rather expect you to do the work for free in my community instead of paying you as I will pay somebody out there. Or I'm looking for a discount. Instead of saying, I'd rather pay you the money because you're in the community, and if I pay you, it's for the community fellowship. You're going to do a good job that everything is right because you're doing it for the Lord. Instead of me depending on somebody who has no God-fearing anything in he's going to take the money, and he's not going to do the job for you. We have it upside down. And then we wonder how come we don't prosper. I'm hoping that I don't know why I just said that. Let me move on. They observe many traditions, such as washing cups, pitchers, and kettles. That's in chapter 7, verse 4. Now, do you know where they get that from? They get that from Zechariah 14, verse 20 to 21. Zechariah 14 says this. This is actually for the Messianic age. But the Pharisees of the first century and before that, they took Zechariah 14, and they used that verse to establish ritual purity outside the temple. Are you with me so far? Are you glad you came? Cool. I want to come back. Tell them. On that day, that's when you know, on that day, holy to the Lord, will be inscribed on the bells of the horses. The cooking pots in the Lord's house, that's the temple, will be like the sacred bowls in front of the altar. Every pot in Jerusalem, holy city, and Judah will be holy to the Lord Almighty. So they took that verse, and they used it to say, okay, everything outside of the temple is also holy. Yeshua is bringing them to task. He's saying, that's not how it works, guys. Whoever helps you may otherwise have received from me korban. When you read chapter 7, verse 11, Yeshua is going to highlight to them what the problem is. It's not the Torah or a custom. Because Yeshua followed traditions in the first century. Okay? Minchag. They have customs. Do you follow the 4th of July? Do you follow Thanksgiving? That's a custom of the Americans. So it's okay to keep those, but you don't want to follow anything Jewish? I'll remind you, Yeshua was Jewish, and he's Jewish. And when he comes back, he's going to be Jewish. Right? So therefore now, what we have is, they are going out there, and this is what they were doing, okay? They were using temple language. It says korban. Korban is a language devoted to God. That's what come near the Lord. It's a temple language used in Mark chapter 7. What they were doing is, let's say that there's a tree. It's just an example. You got the first fruit, and it's dedicated for the Lord. But we know that if there's hunger, and you need to feed somebody, preservation of life comes before anything else. So these types of Pharisees, not all of them, but these types of Pharisees, they don't want to help their parents. They don't want to help their parents. So they're basically saying, no, I can't help you because that's korban. And once it's deemed as dedicated to God in the temple, no one can touch it. So they are oppressing their own family members using temple principles to do it. And Yeshua says, yo, time out. That's not how it works. He's calling them out. Yes? Okay, so let's read Mark chapter 7. Are you with me? Mark chapter 7, let's read it. And I'll show you what I mean. Remember, the core issue is moral purity. People don't read beyond verse 19. But when you read, and it goes like this. I'm going to start in verse 1. I'm going to read through, okay? It says, then the Pharisees and some of the scribes came together to him, having come from Jerusalem. They come from Jerusalem, okay? It says, now when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with the fowl, that is, unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands in a special way, holding the traditions of the elders. Nothing wrong with washing your hands before you eat, because you all do it. So there's got to be more to this. When you will go into the temple on the Temple Mount, you have to wash your hands and feet. It's holy ground. You sanctify your hands and your feet. You walk and your hands. Get it? You walk, how you walk in the Lord, and the actions of righteousness. That's really what it means. Hands, you wash your feet. Am I walking the way you call me to walk, Lord? You wash your hands. Am I righteous in your eyes, O Lord? Okay? And it says, when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And there are many other things which they have received and hold, like the washing of cups, pitchers, copper vessels, and couches. When the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? It's not talking about meat. It's It's talking about bread with unwashed hands. Remember that, okay? He answered and said to them, well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, the people honor me with their lips, but their hearts is far from me. In vain they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commandment of man. He's quoting you Isaiah. How many of you ever bother to go back and read the chapters in Isaiah to know what the context was? Because many people in the Hebrew roots use this to become anti-Semitic and anti-everything Jewish. And they don't know what it's talking about. Okay? Now, for laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other such things you do. Now, is it wrong to do it in the temple? No, they're teaching it to do it outside the temple domain. Do the rules in here apply the same as out there that door? So it's like you saying, right about 10 feet beyond the door, you got to do exactly the same thing we do here. Is that logical? You have a threshold. That threshold, when the moment they walk through here, the rules change. You cannot behave the same way as you do out there, right? But you should behave morally the same way here, out there. But there's some things that you do here on the Sabbath that the moment you go out there, you don't have to observe the custom the same way because you are outside the sacred area that you have delineated for the service. Does that make sense? All right. You're so quiet. It says, he said to them, all too well you reject the commandment of God that you may keep your tradition. Now watch what he does. Look at the contrast. Then he takes them away from what they're doing to what the real problem is. He knew they're not honoring their parents. He knew they're using temple language to abuse the regular people. And then he challenges them. He tells them, you guys are not behaving the way the Torah says. And watch. He says, for Moses says, honor your father and your mother. And he who cursed his father and mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father and mother, whatever profit you may have received from me is korban, that is a gift of God. In other words, he's saying, you are using temple stuff as an excuse not to take care of your parents, but yet God commands you to honor your father and your mother. You want these people to behave ritually pure, but you are disregarding a great commandment to honor your parents and your mom. What's greater? Come on, what's greater? To have clean hands or to honor your mom and your dad first? Okay, what's a greater transgression? That you don't do your hands or you don't wash it? Or that you curse your mom in public? God forbid. My mom will still slap me upside the head. She's 77. If I will disrespect her like that in public, I'm afraid of my mom. Even at 54, I look at my mom, yes, ma'am. She taught me respect. And when I was 8 years old, I remember reading the 10 Commandments, and the one that impressed me was the one, honor your father, your mother, your days will be lengthened. And I said, I want to do that one. Because I didn't know any better. I just want to live a long time. You know, I'm 8 years old. What do you expect? Okay, it says, then you no longer let him do anything for his father, for his mother. He called them out. So let me tell you what the real problem is, guys. You are not honoring your mom and your dad. You want these people to live according to your standards, but yet you're a hypocrite? And then he says, making the word of God of no effect through your tradition, which you have handed down, and such many you things you do. So let me ask you a question. How many people you see on TV that once you get to know them personally, you can never hear them again? Because their behavior is completely disappointing, right? But then if you know somebody and you know that their lifestyle, their behavior is something that you respect, even when they make a mistake in their teaching, you still be willing to give them an opportunity because they're people of character and integrity. They just made a mistake. Yes? But in the Hebrew Roots movement, we forget about that. We listen to lousy people who they're not even accountable to anybody just because they'll tell you one truth or another truth, and we put up with their nonsense and their attitudes, and we don't keep them accountable for the character they're supposed to have. And the notion that we're teachers, that we are above correction, has to stop. Just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean I'm above correction. If I mistreat my wife, don't listen to anything I say. Straight up. If I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing in my house and take care of my family, then don't listen. Find another teacher. This is not my truth. This is not something that I just reinvented here. Nothing is mine. Everything belongs to him. He's just giving me the opportunity to present it to you. But it comes with a price. You got to be accountable on every front. You think it's easy? Walk in our shoes one day. And then people just sit behind a computer and all they do is criticize. But they're not willing to go on the front lines. It's easy to hide behind a computer and to have comments on Facebook. But they're not willing to put in the time, put in the effort. All they do is criticize everything. And then when you look into their personal life, no one wants to be their friend because they have no character. I'd rather be a person of character and integrity and know nothing and help the homeless, the widows, and the strangers than think I know everything and nobody wants to follow me because I have no integrity. So now put that in a bigger scope of representing the Creator. The responsibility that we have to represent Him with honor, with integrity, with reverence. So when they see us, He will be respected. He will be honored. He will be uplifted. He will be blessed because my King deserved to be honored the right way. And we are supposed to put Him on display, and we're messing up because I just want to be smarter than you. In the meantime, homelessness, widows, no one's taking care of them. We messed it up, and I repent. Because for so long, I thought just learning the Bible, 3 Hebrew words, I was all there. And I found out really quickly that it didn't matter to the Lord if I don't live a life according to His standards. And I need to change. And I want to be a better servant of the Lord. And I hope that you join me in this journey every day. You know, count it all joy, for the Lord. Let me continue. I have to finish. And it says, verse 14. When he had called all the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him. I want you to pay attention when we get to verse 20 to 22. Okay, it says, there's nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him. But the thing which comes out of him, that are things that defile a man. Now, it's interesting. Judaism believes that human excrement does not defile you. Even if you're going to go to the temple and you go to the bathroom and you touch a human excrement, it doesn't defile you. It comes from you. It's a normal bodily function. Just wash. You're good. We don't want smelly people in the temple. You follow? Okay? Supposed to laugh, guys. Too serious. Verse 17. When he had entered a house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. He said to them, are you thus without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters man from outside cannot defile him? Now, what is he talking about? Ritual purity or moral purity? You need to keep reading. It says, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated. Thus, sanctifying all foods is not in the Greek. Now, watch. Verse 20, and he said, what comes out of a man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of man, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornication, murder, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within a man and defile a man, all moral in nature. He just basically told them, these people are morally unclean, telling you how to be ritually cleansed, but yet they are like whitewashed tombs. And Yeshua is calling them out because of the greater responsibility of leadership. Yeshua is saying, you are a hypocrite. You're not taking care of your mom and your dad. You want these people to live according to your ritual standards, making their life miserable, putting a yoke on them they cannot actually carry, but then you yourself being self-righteous, when you have a need to take care of your parents, you don't do it. So you are unrighteous. You look righteous on the outside, but you're behaving unrighteously. And Yeshua takes them to the crux of the matter. He is saying you need to become a righteous kingdom. It starts from within. It doesn't mean that if the temple is standing that you don't need ritual purity. But there's no temple today. But do you wash the location to make it clean? Why? Because otherwise people are not going to be enjoying the area. So washing the place, cleaning the place like you were doing earlier, to make it presentable is the house where we worship God, right? So you make it presentable. But let me ask you a question. Would you rather have a whole bunch of people with Ferraris and Armani suits, but they're morally corrupt in here? Or you rather have humble people who are morally upright, even though they may be broke, but in their hearts they are rich in righteousness. That's exactly what Yeshua is pointing out to these people. Now, go back and read the whole New Testament in that light, and you see it. It'll make sense. Let me prove the point to you. Let's go to Acts 10. Acts 10, and I'll finish with this. The book of Acts, chapter 10. It's a very interesting chapter. And it's another chapter that people use to say you can do and eat whatever you want, when in reality, that's not the point. He's using the picture of something unclean to teach you what God is looking for. A moral person. He is unclean because he's a Gentile. But look how he introduces the letter. Chapter 10 of the book of Acts. It says this. It says, there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion that was called the Italian Regiment. It's a lot of information in that verse. If you understand that there were only 80 centurions in the whole Roman Empire. 80 to 100. And they had the authority to lead over 100 to 80 men. Okay? Now, you got to understand that the way it's going to describe this man now is very significant. He's living in Caesarea, which was a city built by Herod. It took 12 years to build. It was an imperial city dedicated to Caesar, right? It was an imperial cult. No Jew in their right mind would go in there and then pretend to go to the temple. If you go to Caesarea, you were ritually unclean. You cannot go into the temple. So therefore, do you think Peter would have gone unless the Lord did not show him the sheet with all the four-footed animals? So Peter is seeing a vision, and he's arguing with the Lord. Lord, I've never eaten anything unclean. And then the Lord says, do not call what I've cleansed common and unclean. Temple language, common and unclean. Right? And then Peter's just trying to figure out, what in the world is it? I've never eaten shrimp. Surely it cannot be food. And then the door. He goes out, Romans, pigs. He got it. He understood the connection between unclean animals and the Gentiles, pigs. Now he goes with them to a imperial city. Peter already knew he already can't go to the temple. He can just go to the temple. He's got to go through the process of ritual cleansing. Right? All right, so watch. The next verse, it says this. It says, a devout man, a man who feared God with all his household, who gave alms, tzedakah. He was helping the needy, the homeless, the widows. And prayed to God always. No, wait. This is a centurion that if he would have gotten caught worshiping the God of Israel, he would have been crucified and killed by the Romans. Because him worshiping the God of Israel would have been treason to Caesar. A man who knew he had no part in the kingdom of God because the house of Shammai did not want any Gentiles to be part of the kingdom of God. This man is praying to God always, living in a complete pagan city, still loyal to the covenant, ritually unclean, but morally pure. Helping the people of God, praying to the God of Israel. That's exactly the type of people God is looking for. We are living in a moral decay world, but we are morally pure, living righteousness in a complete decaying world. Praying to God always. We are like Cornelius. And that's the type of people he's looking for. Yeshua is challenging the whole core of belief in the first century. He is challenging who they are, how they live, and how they should behave. And I submit to you, we have come full circle in this country today. The people who are supposed to put God on display with our values, we're not speaking out. We're afraid what people will say. Where are all the Christian leaders, all the mega evangelists, and all this chaos going on in America today? Where are they? I haven't heard hardly anything from anybody. Only a few guys. Where are us? What are we doing? When are we going to speak out and present God and his righteousness the way we're supposed to present him, in a manner that honors him? Because we're looking for a quick getaway, and he needs us to be the light in the world. May the Lord bless you and keep you. And I pray that this teaching was edifying to you and challenging, and the importance of the temple and how much the temple plays an important part of the biblical narrative. Amen? So I want to thank you, and pastors, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and thank you for being so nice to me today. Shalom.